Today we're going to play a game about a gay angel that can't shoot his arrows more than 3 feet, can't fly, but can jump about 3 times his height. He's the gayest midget that should have ever played in the NBA, Pitt, and we're going to play his game, Kid Icarus, until we win. Kid Icarus can best be described as a top scroller. You spend most of your time jumping up to get to the next level, save for the dungeons and the occasional side-scrolling level. Then again, it's not just a platformer. Oh no, Kid Icarus also borrows heavily from RPGs. What's that, you say? Kid Icarus is more like Zelda than Final Fantasy? Bullshit. Just because you can collect items like Link doesn't mean jack. This game is all about numbers. The higher your stats, the easier the game is. Well, the easier it is to kill enemies, anyway. Even then, some enemies are put in such ridiculous locations that it doesn't matter how high your strength is. Look, think of it like this. You have a ton of stats in this game. Hit points, strengths, a hidden skill stat, money in the form of hearts, leveling, and equipable items that change not only how much damage you do, but also how you do it, and the number of experience points you get. Oh yeah, and there's grinding. If you want to get everything, get the best ending, you've got to grind the hell out of this one. And, well, I don't like grinding. Plus, I really don't like it when you can lose out on the best ending simply by getting hit a few times. In other words, the best way to describe Kid Icarus is dickish. There's no story, lots of grinding, a ton of hellish platforming moments, and the game will literally spit in your face if you so much as take damage. Kid Icarus is the 8-bit version of World of Warcraft. Nintendo did throw us a bone though. You've basically got unlimited continues, so every time you die, you start from the beginning of the stage you died on. Of course, they start you off with the equipment you started with, instead of everything you had when you died, like all the hearts, levels, and strength power-ups you got over the last 2 hours. Yeah, this game is dickish. There are a few things you can do to stave off the dickery of Kid Icarus. First things first, learn how Pitt moves and learn it fast. He moves somewhat slow and his jumping is hampered by how the game handles momentum. Weirdly. Jumping is kind of strange. It's stiff, not as stiff as Castlevania, but it's also loose, not as loose as Contra. You gain momentum, but you can't change direction, only slow yourself down in midair. And when you land, your in-flight momentum carries over when you hit the ground. It feels almost as if you're landing a plane. It's weird. The jumping mechanic can cause some traditional gamers to have headaches, migraines, and possibly even strokes. Learn the Aero Mechanics quickly. The difference between life and death in this game is a mere matter of pixels. Your arrow at first doesn't shoot that far, and when you start off the game, you really don't do a whole lot of damage. You'll want to get your power-ups as quickly as possible, because the enemy's strength can quickly become a headache at the lower strength ratings. Speaking of upgrades, there are a metric ton of things for you to get in Kid Icarus. The shield forms a protective shield around Pitt and keeps him safe. Well, relatively safe. See, the shield is only 2 spinning crystals, and it's only effective when the shield hits an enemy. The best way to describe it is helpful, but not exactly useful. Kind of like that one guy at work who always knows how to do things but just sits in his office drinking his coffee and bitching about how nothing gets done around here. The sacred bow will let you shoot arrows a decent distance across one screen, instead of just having it flake out after a few feet. It's a nice tool to have if you just want to finish the game. On the other hand, it's almost entirely useless because shooting enemies from far away means you won't be able to collect the hearts. With the fire arrow equipped, Pitt'll shoot an arrow with a fireball spinning around it. If the fireball hits an enemy, the arrow continues on its path. If the arrow hits an enemy, the arrow and the fireball disappear. Hearts are the currency in the game. Small hearts are worth 1 heart, half hearts are worth 5, and large hearts 10. I don't get this. First Castlevania 2 and now Kid Icarus? When were hearts ever used as a major form of currency? Hey, how much will you give me for these 5 goat hearts? I don't know, how much are you gonna give me for the still beating heart of your sister? The harp turns enemies into mallets. I don't get it. The mallets can be used in dungeons to free Pitt's friends, who are entirely worthless because they can be killed in one hit, so fuck them. The angel's feather will save you once from falling off the edge of the screen by letting you fly for a short period of time. The Water of Life in a glass instantly restores 7 hit points. The Water of Life in a bottle restores 7 hit points after you lose all of your life. The barrel can store 8 bottles, which helps you push your maximum hit points to 95. The map appears in each dungeon and will show you a map of the dungeon on your pause screen. The torch lets you see your position on the map. It's pretty useless considering that all you need to do is figure out where the edge of the dungeon is to figure out where you are on the map. The pencil lets you see which rooms you've already visited on the map. Again, another useless tool because if you're a good gamer, you've already started making your own hand-drawn maps, so you already know where you are. Also, the torch and the pencil stop working after you leave the dungeon. Why is that? I mean, the torch, okay, I get. It runs out of fuel, but the pencil? Did a classmate steal it before you got back from lunch? Finally, there's the credit card. Ah, yes, the credit card. This has got to be one of the dumbest items in the game. Having a credit card in this game is pointless because you're going to grind for hearts one way or another. Here's the idea. The credit card lets you buy stuff you don't have enough hearts for, but there's only one problem. You can only make one purchase on the card, and that has to be paid off before you can make another purchase. Okay, that's fine, but let me ask you this. If you're going to be forced to grind for hearts, then what's the point of having the credit card? Either you're going to grind for hearts before you buy it, or after you buy it. Either way, you're still limited to buying one item on the card, so what's the point? What happens if you don't pay off the debt? Is Pit gonna get calls from a collection agency or something? While you're playing Kid Icarus, you'll notice several doors along the way in each level. These are the holy chambers that'll either contain a store, a nest of enemies, the sacred chamber, a training room, or a hot spring. The hot spring will restore all of your health as you sit in it, while the shop will let you buy stuff. The nest of enemies is just that. 8 enemies will pop into existence and attack you. You've got to kill them to stay alive. They don't give you XP, but each enemy will drop 10 hearts. The training chamber will have a god in there challenging you to dodge and or destroy flying tiles. Pass the test, get a weapon upgrade. Don't pass the test, and the god will mock you, calling you a weakling. I told you this game was dickish. The treasure room is a game of chance, just ignore it. The sacred chamber requires a little explanation. A god will upgrade your strength if you meet the requirements for getting the upgrade. That is, you need 10,000 skill points in the level to get the strength upgrade in each section. And what are skill points? Why, they're the points that you get or lose whenever you do something in the game. And you don't get to see how many skill points you've got. I know this much. You lose points for every arrow you fire and every time you take damage, but gain points for killing enemies and collecting hearts. You also lose points for breaking a jar in the treasure chamber. Like I said, avoid that room. So how do you get enough points to get a strength upgrade? Easy. Take no damage, kill every enemy, collect every heart, and never miss a shot. If you think I'm gonna do all of that just to get the best ending, you're out of your fucking mind. Oh yeah, this game has multiple endings, but we'll get to that later. For now, let's talk enemies. There are a few common enemies throughout the game, and they're a bother, believe me. The blue snakes are the ones you'll run into the most, and they usually appear in groups of 3 or 4. And they usually drop down from the top of the screen, like Medusa was shitting on your head or something. They're pretty easy to beat. One arrow is all it takes to get rid of these little pests. The enemies of the enemy chambers are the flying noses with eyes. They don't give you any XP, but killing them and collecting the hearts they leave behind will give you skill points. The Reaper. This guy is awesome. Every time he sees Pit, he flips his shit. I mean, look at that. Every time he flips out, he summons 4 little flying Reapers to try and kill you. Your best bet is to try and avoid this guy when you can, but you can kill him if you try hard enough. The Eggplant Wizard. Yeah, we all know about the guy from Captain N. This guy's no vegetable, though. He is, without a doubt, the single most annoying, pain-in-the-ass monster in the entire game. You know what he does? He throws eggplants at you and turns you into a walking eggplant. Once that happens, you might as well restart the level because you're as good as dead. Once you're an eggplant, you can't do diddly squat until you find a hospital and get the curse removed. And doing that is next to impossible when you can't fire arrows. So aside from the common enemies, each stage has a variety of enemies and obstacles that you need to avoid, and each level is broken down into 4 parts, 3 stages, and 1 dungeon. The first stage is easy enough, with only a few annoying parts thrown in. In stage 1-1, you'll face off against several Grim Reapers, but their placement is generally to your benefit, as you'll be able to jump up and kill them without sending them into a psycho mode. Stage 1-2 immediately ramps up the difficulty, though, with some seriously difficult to avoid encounters. You'll be fighting these floating octopuses the entire time you're climbing up, while you're trying to kill snakes and the Grim Reaper. Oh, and yeah, while you're trying to jump through some pretty interesting platforming sections. The worst part of 1-2 is the last section. Not only will you be low on health, but you'll also have to avoid a floating octopuses while trying to take out the Grim Reaper and his buddies, all so you can get to the door. In Stage 1-3, the difficulty doesn't stem from the amount of enemies trying to kill you so much as the platforming, and it's a lot more difficult in this stage than the last. The worst part of this level is the end section. You have to make your way up several moving platforms while avoiding tentacles that hurt you, frogs that leap up at you, and the Grim Reaper, who is placed right at the end again and can be a real hassle if you're low on health. Stage 1-4 is the first dungeon you face, and it's the easiest dungeon. It's also a maze. Yeah, whatever genius decided to make this game figured that making the dungeons into mazes would just tickle gamers' funny bones. Well, it didn't. You'll either have to make your own maps or download them from the internet, because getting lost in this place is a death sentence. You start in roughly the middle portion of the dungeon, and the boss is in the lower right portion of the maze. Simply go to the right and down. Right? No, silly, that's completely wrong. If you do that, you'll find an impassable wall that will haunt your nightmares. Instead, what you have to do is go around. A really long way around. Technically, the path is right, up, left, down, right. Basically, the dungeons are laid out in a way that you're guaranteed to run into the Eggplant Wizard at least once. In this particular dungeon, you'll run into him 3 times. Once you make your way around, you'll face off against the 2-headed dog beast. The bosses in Kid Icarus all work the same way. They have a health meter at the bottom right of the screen, and every time you hit them, the health will go down by 1 to 5 points, depending on your strength. This boss is particularly easy. Just keep firing your arrows at him. Every time you hit him, he'll rise into the air. Keep hitting him, and eventually you'll develop a pattern. By the time he's ready to hit you with an attack, he'll be too far in the air to hit you. If you don't have any strength power-ups, then this is going to be a long fight. It's not going to take 3 or 4, 5, or even 10 hits to knock this boss down. Oh no, you need to hit this guy 100 times to take him out. Level 2 is a side-scroller with some pretty difficult sections. For the majority of the level, you'll be avoiding 3 things: rocks that fall from the sky, pufferfish that spring up from the bottom, and snowmen. Snowmen placed in some of the most ball-bustingly difficult positions I've ever seen. I mean, come on, who the hell builds a killer snowman over a pit of lava? The platforming sections in this level are a sight to behold. In some sections, you'll simply have to make some easy jumps, while in others, you have to jump between rising platforms, and still in other sections, you have to avoid projectiles being thrown at you while on moving platforms, while you're trying to kill a snowman standing in your way. Jesus! That's not the worst part of it, though. Oh no, once you get past all of that garbage, you still got a dungeon to make your way through, and oh boy, it's a doozy. This whole place is ice, and it has sections of lava pits. Ice and lava. What the hell is this? How does this even exist in a game? I just don't get it. In this dungeon, you'll have to go through no less than 6 screens of Eggplant Wizards before you come up against the stage boss, a leaping snake dragon thing. He's nothing special. The only problem you'll have here is the constant jumping between platforms you'll need to do in order to avoid him. The boss doesn't fire anything at you, just jumps around in an easy to figure out pattern. The only difficult thing with this guy is staying on your A-game the entire fight, because he has 200 hit points, and it'll take a good long time for you to knock this guy out. A really long time. Level 3 takes us back to the upward scrolling and platforming that Kid Icarus is famous for. The first part of the level isn't anything special if you just keep moving. You'll need precise jumping to get through it, but if you're quick enough, you should be able to simply jump up and not worry about the enemies coming down on you. The second stage is where things take a turn for the worse. You'll be faced with several sections of jumping on moving platforms, near pits of floating lava. This is tough enough on its own, but combine that with the Grim Reaper, who will flip his shit every time he catches a glimpse of you, and you've got one very painful section of platforming to get through. The third section combines the worst parts of the first 2, namely the precise jumping and platforming, all while trying to avoid the Grim Reaper and his friends. What takes the cake is the dungeon. This place is massive. You only have to face off against the Eggplant Wizard 4 times here, but good luck finding him. I highly recommend you find yourself a map of this place, or make one yourself, because there's no way you'll be able to get through here the first time through. The basic way to get to the boss is to go down, left, up, and then right. But man, it's a hell of a challenge. Luckily, there's a store in the room before the boss, and you'll need it if you're going to stock up on health. And the boss, well, he's a giant bubble. Okay, what the hell is up with these bosses? A 2-headed dog, a jumping snake, and now a giant bubble? The next thing you're gonna tell me is that Medusa is just a big giant eye. Well anyway, the secret to beating Mr. Bubbles here is to pay more attention to his 2 bubble cohorts rather than to him, because it's those 2 little fuckers that'll cause you the most nightmares. Keep shooting the Bubble King, but make sure you avoid those bubble halflings first. This one's gonna take a while. At 300 hit points, no matter how many strength upgrades you've got, you're gonna need to grind this boss into the ground. And that brings us to Medusa's Lair. And it's an auto-scrolling shoot-'em-up level. Surprise? There's not much to this level. Kill everything in your path and don't get dead. Medusa herself isn't anything special. Wanna know why? There's a spot you can stand in that will cause her AI to glitch and never hit you. Ever. If you stand in this spot and just keep firing your lance, or really large toothpick, I'm not quite sure, she'll never hit you, and you'll be able to nail her and the odd snake or 2 that pops out of her head long before they even hurt you. Keep attacking the Eye of Medusa, and eventually... You can get one of 4 possible endings, but believe me, all that grind isn't worth it, because each ending sucks as much as the bad ending. All they do is add some text and some sprites. Whoop-de-freaking-do. I've never been so underwhelmed by a game before in my life. Nintendo would never release another Kid Icarus game, and with good reason. Pit was nothing more than corporate meddling, combining Mario, Link, and Samus into one money-making game. Good riddance. The hot spring will Bosco the Eggplant Wizard, he will grant all your dreams. Bosco the Eggplant Wizard, he kills Antichrist and eats some cream.